Hi guys, it's Mary McIntyre here. This is going to be a really interesting video. Monster Tutorials, one of my favourite YouTube channels, showed you how you can make a really economical skeleton. Not to use as a skeleton as such, but so that you can use it as a base to corpse on top of, turn it into a mummy or a scarecrow or whatever. Here in the UK, it's really difficult to find like actual life-size skeletons, and if you do find them, they're super expensive, and very often they're coming from overseas, which is even more money on top of that for postage. But if all you're going to do is cover it up with stuff, there's no need to have this absolutely pristinely perfect anatomically correct skeleton. So Eduardo shared a video which wasn't his design, but he showed how to make a kind of top half of a skeleton using either hollow pool noodles or this kind of pipe insulation or pipe lagging. So I've got 4 1 metre lengths of it. I'm throwing it around on the floor. So this stuff has, they're all rolling all over the place. So this has like an internal diameter. So basically there's a really cool way of cutting this stuff up and gluing it together with some contact cement. And for that purpose, I've bought a little tin of this impact stuff from Evo Stick. Once I've done this, I am going to be turning it into a character that is going to go into my Halloween display this year. I'm really excited about this year's display. I'm doing something different this year, and it's a very ambitious project, but I am really excited. I prefer Halloween to Christmas, so you know it's always a big thing for me, but this year I'm really excited about what I've got planned. So this video is going to show you how I follow those instructions from Eduardo Talbot's video at Monster Tutorials. I'll have the original video linked in the description box below, so you can go and watch that. So this is me trying to follow that tutorial and come up with a skeleton that I can then use in another video to turn into my character. So let's get started. Okay, I've watched Eduardo's video a couple of times now, and I've kind of jotted down some measurements here. I've also looked in one of my anatomy books. I did a diploma in anatomy and physiology, so luckily I could raid the bookshelf. So the idea is this is going to be the upper part of a skeleton, and I probably will make other parts of it. The first thing we need to do is cut a length that is going to be the spine, and if you're going to do this as something breaking out of the ground, the fact that it's got a hole in the middle is great, because you can put a stake in there and then put like a plastic pipe through it and just stand it up. I won't be doing that because I have other plans for this guy, but I'm going to just cut that down now. So the measurement that I'm going to do for the spine is 44 centimetres. So I'm just going to measure that and cut the spine. That's there. So I'm just using a well-sharpened kitchen knife to cut through this. Right, so that's the spine. So we then also need to make some shoulders to go across. So the length of the shoulders, 36 centimetres. I'm then going to cut a little notch so that that can get pushed down on top of that to create the shoulders. So I'm going to find the halfway mark, so that will be there. I'm going to try to draw this because I don't trust myself. Okay, that's the shoulders. Next up, I'm going to make the sternum. So that should be 15 centimetres long, which is about there. Right, so this needs to be split lengthways. My sternum almost looks like a necktie, so right, I'm going to use the scissors for this, I think. So I need 2 of those. So they are going to get glued together like that. And that little V shape will give you something that you can kind of stick the ribs to. So I'm just going to trim some of those edges that are a bit harsh. So we've got the sternum, the shoulders and the spine. Next up, the ribs. Okay, onto piece of pipe number 2. Now I measured my husband's rib cage just to try to get the length for one rib correct, and I reckon 45 centimetres is the longest, and yeah, I think that will work. So I'm going to of course split this lengthways, so 45 centimetres takes it to there. Okay, now I need to try to do this accurately, so I'm going to cut lengthways. That will not be straight because I am genuinely incapable of cutting straight anything. That side's already scored because you can put it around pipes to insulate them. So if you cut them in half there, you can get 2 ribs out of each length, but I think I could possibly get 4. I'm trying to decide whether to do 4 here or make that into 3. And being more anatomically correct, then 4 would be more like the actual size of the ribs. Yeah, I'm going to try. I'll see if I can cut them evenly. I think that is closer to a kind of rib size than that. So I know that is probably a bit sturdier. So yeah, keep going with that. Cut that one more time. When these get stuck down, they're going to need a bit of a bevel so that they'll stick better. So they've got that bevel, which means they can sit against something properly. I'm going to do a couple more ribs because the sternum's definitely big enough to take a couple more. 1, 2, 3, 4. I think 1 more on each side would probably work. Right, that's all the ribs, but what I'm going to do is just round off all of the edges on all of these. So I'm just going to go along with the scissors and snip that pointed bit off, You don't need to see me doing that to all these ribs, so I'll be back in a minute. Right, 2 last little things to cut and then I'm ready to stick stuff together. And first of all, there's a little spacer that you need to put on so that your ribs are kind of, the sternum has something to sit on, and then the ribs will give you a more 3-dimensional shape. So I need to cut just a couple of little notches out of the side so that will sit on there. And then I need to cut a couple of clavicles as well. So the length of a rib is not far off actually. So if I just cut a thin stripe of this, that should be about right for the collarbones. 1 on each side, forming a kind of triangle. So I will try to do this straight as I can. Okay, so it's just a little ellipse to come out of there. Easier with the knife actually. Right, that's good. So I'm going to leave my skeleton picture handy just so that I've got like a proper anatomical reference picture, and then take it from there. The first thing I'm going to do is stick the shoulders on. So we need to put contact adhesive on both surfaces. Give that a minute to just start to go off. I'll glue my 2 pieces of sternum together, I think. We need that to be good and solid before we put the ribs on. I've paired the ribs up so that they are kind of similar in size. I didn't cut them perfectly straight, obviously. I'm incapable of cutting anything straight. So I've tried to match up the ribs as best I can. So sit in there like that. I'll put the bottom one in there, and the other 3 should slot in between. As I said, the window's open. It's actually raining for the first time in a really long time. I'm so happy. It's been roasting in the UK. Mega drought conditions. I slightly beveled the back of this here where it's going to sit against the little spacer on the torso here. So I think that should sit just as is. So the final step is to bring these ribs round and glue them onto the spine. So the bottom rib, I think Eduardo said it was like 1.5 inches, inch and a half below that sternum. So we're looking at about 3.5 centimetres. So I want these symmetrical. Oops. Okay, the rib cage is a bit big. The ribs need to be a bit smaller, I think, because the rib cage is fatter than the shoulders, which I'm not loving. But they're being an absolute swine and not sticking down, so I'm gonna pick them off, trim them, put a new bevel on them, and then stick them back down, and then I'll do the clavicles as well. I'm going to do that off camera. Yeah, I think that's actually looking fairly skeleton-like. It's certainly good enough for corpsing over the top of, like Eduardo said in his video. If you want, you know, to have a skeleton as a skeleton, then it's definitely worth investing in the big ones. But if you're going to turn it into a scarecrow or a mummy or corpse it into a zombie or something, then you don't need that kind of level of anatomical detail, just the basics. And so when you shrink wrap and melt the wrap on these, it'll shrink down and look like ribs, which is exactly what we want. And likewise, I've left the clavicle sharp rather than rounding it off, because again, when you corpse, having a sharp clavicle is kind of very zombie-like. So yeah, leave it here for tonight, decide what I'm going to do next tomorrow. Hi guys, so it's been a couple of days now since I finished making the torso of my foam skeleton. I've been thinking about what I'm going to do with the arms, but first of all, a little modification that I had to do. I didn't quite make that spacer big enough, and I couldn't get my contact adhesive to keep the sternum flush against that metal spacer. Against the foam spacer. So what I've done is just wrapped some thin craft wire around the front, fed it through to the back, and then pulled it and twisted that so that it's just pulling the sternum back towards that spacer. So then I was thinking about the arms. There were I have two pieces of this. There was a little offcut of tube which I've cut in half, and I think that will make a nice kind of shoulder blade. From there, what I want to do, I've got this really heavy duty kind of wire, and I want to feed some of that through the tube of the shoulders. It's very handy that it's an enclosed space, and then bring it down, and the top part of the arm I will stick probably something that size. I've got 2 full lengths of pipe lagging that I haven't used, plus this, so I can certainly make this work. So on the bit, using my own arm as a measurement, from there to there, the wire will have like this bone on it, and bottom radius and an ulnar, so probably 2 that are a bit smaller than this. So I should actually be able to get that out of what's left of the original 2 pieces of piping lagging that I was using. So let's get started on the arms. Right, I started bending this piece of wire before I realised that it was actually cut at the other end, so it's not quite long enough for what I was going to do, but I'm going to be able to make it work. I fed the wire through the shoulders, and I've actually used some of the thinner wire to hold that at the top, because I want the wire to come through at the top of the tube, not the bottom. I can stuff stuff into there, but this wire is heavy duty, and bending it anywhere is really difficult, so I wanted to make sure that was secure and that I'm not going to risk kind of twisting and tearing anything to pieces. I've used my own arm measurements here, so I'm going to put the shoulder blades along here and down to the elbow. For me, from the shoulder to the elbow is 25 centimetres. Then I left a little bit of a gap for maybe a knobbly elbow, and then from there to the wrist, 21 centimetres. I've put a bit of a curve in the bottom, which is in theory going to come back up to here to form the radius and the ulnar, but I can still cut 2 pieces of this and stick them on independently of each other, so that should be fine. Measure these and cut these first, and then I can bind the wire in tape just to make sure that I'm covering it and that it will stick. So I need it to be 25, 45 actually, so 22.5. So that will go on those 2 top pieces. I just slice this in half lengthways. So that's going to be from there to there. So I'm going to 2 of those. Probably just trim that sharp corner off a little bit. That'll look pretty awesome. Those 2. Yeah, just trim a little bit off this corner as well. So I need 2 more of those. Chuck those offcuts in the bin, but I'm probably going to get them out again because I think I can use them for the hands and make the fingers. So these guys, I want to just take the top and just kind of round that bit off a little bit so that there isn't such a harsh edge there. Now I need to get my masking tape and cover all of these little bits in masking tape, just so I have something that I can stick all of this to. So I've glued the bones on, stuck a little makeshift elbow in there, which I will bulk out when I corpse it. Shoulder on there, across the other side, shoulder on. And there's the top part of the arm, the radius in the ulnar, and a little elbow. So it's time to make the hands. I've not quite figured out how I will attach the hands yet, but I'll figure that out later. But what I am going to use is these pieces of foam. I've got 2 here. I drew around my own hand and I've got tiny hands, so these may be a little on the small side, but that'll be fine. So that's going to be kind of this bit of the hand, but I'm going to mould the fingers and thumb from this craft wire. So I'm going to twist it and then form the shapes, and then rather than using masking tape and contact cement, which is going to be really difficult for small things, I've got these scraps of foam that I trimmed off making the rest of the skelly. I'm going to use my hot glue gun and I can attach those to the wires and make sure there are gaps and maybe blob some glue for the knuckles. And what I also want to do is make sure that I've got some wire sandwiched in between these layers so that I can kind of mould this a little bit and make it more 3-dimensional so it's not really flat. And then I will add kind of sort of veins, ligaments, whatever on the back of this, probably with hot glue. And when we corpse that, you won't be able to tell that it's made of hot glue and foam, hopefully. So that's the plan. So I have my coffee, I have my Crazy Sheep Lady cup, so hot glue gun on standby. I have 2 kinds of wire in case I run out of this one. So yeah, I'm excited to make the hands. Let's go. So the way that I'm going to do this, I probably don't have enough of this wire to do both, but I'll see how it goes. I can always switch to a heavier gauge wire. So I've just bent this over to be the thumb, and then I'm basically just twisting it, because that will give it more strength than a single layer of this wire. So just twist, 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 twist. It doesn't matter if I leave a bit of a loop at the end, because that will help with kind of making knuckles. So that can be a thumb, a small thumb, size of my hand probably. So yeah, we can twist that down and then come up, and from the thumb we then have, I'll try it on this hand, come up, and we need a finger that is probably a bit longer than that, because my hands are tiny, as I said. So probably that. It's about the index finger size. Then put my finger in there and just, sorry about the noise, twist and twist and twist. So that can be one finger. So once I've formed all of the fingers, I'll go around and kind of bend them where the knuckles would be. So on my hand, the middle finger is a tiny bit longer than that, so I'll just go up a little bit. There we go. So the ring finger, just between the size of those 2, I reckon, so 22. So looking at these fingers, separate them out and kind of have a look at where the knuckles would be. So my idea would be that that kind of sandwiches in something like this. So on the next one I need to make sure the thumb has a bit more length to come down and out. So I have lots of pieces of this which need to be trimmed down to stick over the top of these twisted bits. I've now measured and cut out all of the little bones that I'm going to glue onto there. I'm then going to weave some wire back and forth and sandwich those 2 with some wire sticking out so that I can attach this to the arms of the skeleton, and then I will do the detail on the top, like the kind of veins and tendons and stuff. So place your bets now as to how many times I'm going to burn myself, because I don't have any of those little silicone finger mitts, and these are tiny pieces. So while that heats up, I'm going to measure out some wire here. I want that to kind of go back and forth a couple of times. Probably about that much, I reckon. This wire, by the way, I bought about 7 years ago from Hobbycraft. The bobbin has lasted me all this time. So it is the beadery craft wire. It doesn't give you any information about what gauge it is. It was just in the jewellery making section, I think. Oh God, I'm so going to burn myself here. This is so precise. You have to be on the top. Probably a bit too near the end, but it'll do. Oh my God, this is so fiddly.
One eternity later.
To help mould this kind of palm thing, what I've done is I've kind of woven the wire through the foam. It's really thin craft foam, which is why I've got 2 layers of it. But if I kind of sew it through, just the end of the wire just pokes through really easily. I've also trimmed the top of these flat bits off as well, because when I lay the hand over it, I've stuck the foam on bits that were going to be sandwiched between here, which I don't want. So I've trimmed them all down to the same size. So that's coming out the bottom, but I don't think this wire is strong enough. I need something a little heavier duty to be able to attach that to the ends of the arms. This wire is a bit thicker. Again, there was nothing on it to tell me exactly what the gauge of it was, but if I bring that through as well and maybe twist those, I might have a chance. So if I make that go up and over, something like that. So far I've got the upper torso and the arms, and I still have a strip of the original 2 pieces of lagging left. So altogether, in terms of pipe lagging so far, this has cost £2, which is incredible. Obviously the wire and all this other foam as well is on top, but the main crux of this has been using all the foam, and it's amazing. Such a cool technique, so I'm extremely grateful to Eduardo for showing us how to do this. Okay. I may have to trim that bit off because that thumb's just not coming out properly on there. It is on this one, but I tried to correct the other and it's just not quite right. So I'm actually going to cut the thumb bit off here. I just drew round my hand, but of course I've made the fingers a different size, so that's just not going to work. Just spread the fingers out a little bit more, because once you've glued this you won't be able to do that. And that's not bad. So that should be ready. So I'm going to first of all put some glue down here. This glue is mega hot because this glue gun's been on for ages now. So I'm just going to run some glue all the way around. And stick this lid on. Hands look like salad fingers right now, which is quite terrifying in its own way. So, with the glue stick, so run lines of glue down here. Right, my glue wouldn't stick to the knuckles properly, it just kept kind of running around and to the underneath. So what I've done is kind of poured out lots of blobs of hot glue, which I tried to make knobbly, but the glue was so hot that it formed these nice smooth mounds. So my idea now is to pick each one of those up, put some glue on it, and then try to stick it onto the wire. I have no idea if it's going to work though. It's, yeah. The knuckles are not going to plan. However, I now figured out how I'm going to attach these. I've added another layer of thick wire. This was a little bit, this is all I have left now from the 2 strips of pipe lagging. So I've cut 2 pieces, trimmed off the inside bit so that they sit more flush, and that will sandwich around those wires, and that will become like the wrist bone. So these knuckles are what are doing my head in right now. I mean, I guess I can do something about that when I'm quartzing, but we'll see. I've made a bunch of different sized knuckles here, so hopefully if I just put a blob of glue on there, it will stick on the top. And I want them on the top so that when I quartz, they've got, I was hoping they'd be more kind of arthritic, but these are better than no knuckles. Right, the moment of truth. Will this work? Are they going to stay on? Right, glue gun back on. So I need to leave space for the wrist bones to kind of sandwich. So I have that much wire to play with. This is not going to be sturdy. It's not going to be the most robust hand attachment in the history of prop making. I'm just going to wind that round, and hopefully the corpsing will add a little bit more to it. So that will go on there like that and sandwich between. That hopefully will give it a bit more strength. So it looks floppy, but hopefully it'll be okay. Okay, so glue gun. That's so cool! Oh, awesome! I really feel like I want to put another rib on here, because although I'm going to have some clothing on this, I think it would look good with another rib. I may do that, but for now I'm happy with the hands. And once they're corpsed, I think they'll look really cool, and I can bend those round a little bit more to have more shape. Considering I was completely winging that, I think they turned out alright.